Just from hearing your podcast and all of that. Like even last night, even when you didn't respond to the last minute, I didn't sweat it because I knew that we were going to be good. To just roll with the punches. We should just flow with where it goes.
The whole point of this is to make both of us sound incredibly smart and charming. So we'll see what we can do there. All right, dude, are you ready?
I am ready.
Let's do it, baby. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. Have you picked up your copy of Beyond UX Design, Master Your Craft Beyond Pixels and Prototypes yet? Unlock the secrets of UX success and learn all the things they didn't teach you in school. Use the promo code LISTENER to get 10% off. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book to pick up your copy today. This week's episode is brought to you by Mento Design Academy, where it's not just about learning UX design, it's about discovering your unique path in it. Their approach is different. It's personal. It's tailored to you. They don't just teach, they inspire students to use their passion as a driving force in their learning, and that is something I've experienced firsthand as a mentor. I've been fortunate enough to guide students who are exploring concepts that they're truly passionate about. It's not just about following a curriculum. It's about shaping that curriculum around what excites you. This approach emphasizes not just knowledge, but a deep love for the discipline and seeing my mentees grow, apply their passions, and craft portfolios that are genuinely them. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. So if you're looking for a UX course that's as unique as you are, check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Mento. And just for my listeners, use the promo code BeyondUX200 to get $200 off the course. So join Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. As always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, and Marty for their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get rough transcripts and exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're released. And you can get instant access to the video archives for as little as $5 a month. For more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. I've got a really awesome guest today, Kerry McPhearson. I am really excited. If you've been anywhere on LinkedIn for a little while, you've probably run into Kerry, I'm sure. But Kerry and I are going to talk about something that junior designers don't really hear about often, and that is the fact that hiring managers are not monoliths, and you just never know what they think. So there's some tips and tricks to help understand a little bit about what those people are looking for, so you can apply yourself and really stand out and be what they're looking for. Kerry McPhearson is a product designer at Disney Streaming, combining his interest in music and video games with his design work. He's got a varied background, starting as a technical support rep before moving into product design, where he's worked for both B2B startups like Stored and B2C corps, such as Inspire Brands. Kerry, I'm so excited, man. We've been talking for a little while on LinkedIn. I'm finally getting you on the show. I'm so happy to have you on, man. How's it going? Welcome to Beyond UX Design.
Thank you for having me. Life has been pretty rough. I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot of challenges as of late, but I've been kind of rolling along with the punches. But I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, that's all you can do sometimes, man.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. I don't know. This past year, at least, 2023 was kind of a mess for me.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's a mess for a lot of people. 2024 so far has been a little bit better, so I hope it's the same for you. So Kerry, today we're going to talk a little bit about those hiring managers and how you just never know what they think. But before we jump into that, man, tell everybody listening a little bit about you and a little bit about your background and all that stuff.
Definitely. So I have a background in tech support at, companies that you probably know. I'm not going to mention them here because it's going to be leading into something why I got into this career in the first place. But I think for me, especially around that time in the early 2010s when I was in those jobs, Tumblr was really popular and I got introduced to like all of these different design styles, like before I knew what it was, like type design and print design. And then also in technical support, I noticed this reoccurring theme at companies where customers or clients would tell me how much they hated something, right? And every time I would bring it up to upper management, they would say, "Hey, stay in your place. We already have a team that handles these kind of issues." And I thought to myself, I wonder if there's a role out there where I can add value going in, where it's creative problem solving. I can, build great products with people, but I can speak up for the underdog. So people that's in tech support, people that's in sales, people that's in quality assurance, and all these other areas where product teams might neglect because of, things are not perfect. If you're listening to this call and you want to work in this industry, or if you already work in this industry and you think that, you should be on a better team, look, it's always going to be like that at every place because sometimes product teams have to move fast, right? They have to execute and all of that. But product design is the culmination of all those things, of creativity, of research, understanding people, right? The business side of things as well. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it's one of those very unique disciplines where you can have like all of these different things, right? And you can have interesting conversations with people, and where it's just so broad as a discipline where you could be like working on like something that has nothing to do with design in an area where it's like really nebulous. And then you could be working at like a front facing company like Instagram where you're working on stories, something that Barack Obama uses. So that's what I love about
Right.
this discipline.
Yeah, you're right. And one of the things that's really interesting too, that I love your background in customer support. Like that's something that most UX designers, I don't think really have ever thought about that as being an advantage. But I imagine there was a lot of opportunity there to really build empathy for actual users and experience that pain. And it's funny because like when you're a UX designer, you generally have no insight into that whole customer support process, what ticketing systems are used, how it works, what the messaging is, what the tone and voice is, all that stuff. I mean, if you're lucky, some companies have like a CX team or a service design team to kind of look at that stuff. But for the most part, most people don't, especially in the United States. Europe, it's a little bit better. So that's really cool, man. I love that. I could actually talk to you about just that, like probably for a whole hour. Yeah, that whole transition, I think, from customer support, that must have been fascinating, huh? I imagine.
Oh yeah, it was. I think that with customer support, it is a role that is, in my opinion, design is kind of free flowing. It's not a job where people micromanage you, which is probably why a lot of folks don't hire juniors, right? It is a job where you
That's
kind
true.
of get thrown in the weeds and you're expect to figure it out. I think with support, you do have people over your shoulder, like, QA, folks monitoring your call, your managers to figure out how to make your calls much better. There's also a talk time as well. I think once
Oh, wow.
again, there's a bunch of different like UX processes and stuff, right? There could be like a design sprint, or they could be like, faster moving. Oh, we have to implement this in a week, right? For a stakeholders kind of thing. But still, I would even say with that, you get time to like iterate and think about stuff. But with support, it's like very reactive. It's kind of in your face. It's, oh, we have to do this now. The customer is telling you all this stuff, and you really have to think on the spot. And I think that's what helped me with what you mentioned is kind of thinking on the spot, is thinking outside of the box, right? With a lot of issues, when someone says, "Oh, this account took $1,500 from this customer, right? And it's lost. I can't refund them. Oh, I have you on speaker, by the way. What are we going to do about it, right? Like, how do you respond to something like that in
Yeah.
a sense? Because it's like one thing being at a job, and sometimes I'm pretty sure, Jeremy, we both had these problems in the past, and then we think about it, right? Where someone comes up to us and say, "Oh, leadership." The entire product team, right? We're changing the strategy. This is what we're going with. Love it or hate it. This is what you're going to have to do. You're thinking, man, what the hell? Why? Like, why is this happening now? Why are they changing this now? We were so close to this solution in a sense. And then you think it's like, oh, well, it could be much worse than like, service role jobs or customer service jobs where you just have to be the person that's like the middleman, right? And take all the punches and hits. And I really hate to say it like that, but it's true.
That's
When a
true, man.
company
Yeah.
decides to make an arbitrary, change. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I know this is like totally off topic of the show today, but like I feel like there's so many parallels between like customer support, like you mentioned, being the one who's like the customer facing, like this is the person I'm talking to right now, and something like waiting tables where something is wrong, like you are the face of that interaction, and you have to figure out what to do right now. You can't go back and like wait 20 minutes for someone to tell you. You got to handle it right this second. So anyway, I feel like that's such an interesting learning experience. I bet, man. Anyway, I love that. I hope you come back on at some point and we could talk about your career shift and how that applied and all that stuff. Anyway, I love that stuff. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit today about this idea that hiring managers, they're not a monolith. It's funny. I tell this to people a lot. Like we always talk about like portfolio advice, and I want to talk a little bit about that today, but like,
Oh, yeah.
this is a really good, I think, entryway into this, but like we talk about portfolio advice, what a quote unquote perfect portfolio looks like. And then when you look at stuff like job titles, job descriptions, all this stuff, they're all over the place. And I'm like, if they can't agree on that, how could they possibly agree on what a quote unquote perfect portfolio looks like? I mean, come on. There's no way to know. So I think that's like a really great segue in this. This idea that hiring managers aren't a monolith and you have no idea what they're thinking, it goes across the board. You might think, oh, for my interview or for my case study, but beyond that, once you land the job, what are you actually supposed to do? Who are you reporting to? Who are you working with? All these things they're totally different. So we're going to talk about all that today. So I'm going to kick this off first. I'm going to ask you a question. When we start thinking about, designers, obviously we got to land the job first. Hiring managers don't think the same. What does that mean for a designer who has no idea where to start? What do they do? How do they get into that? How do they know how to move forward?
First and foremost, asking what industry do I really want to work in? So what kind of products do I love to use, right? What kind of things am I interested in? But also being realistic as well, because there's just and I'm just gonna be honest, and Jeremy, I know you know this too, but I'm just gonna be real to a lot of people listening to this call. If you want to get into like video gaming industry, or if you want to work for a FANG company, it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot for you to stand out. Like, even if you want to work at a company like Discord, right? Because these companies, they only hire a lot of people with degrees. Not everyone.
Really?
And once again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that with hiring managers. Don't think the same, because it depends. But they only hire a lot of people with degrees, and there's no way realistically that you're going to be able to compete with someone that came from Berkeley, or that came from like Parsons, and they have like internship experience under their belt, like their craft is a little bit more polished and better, and that they've actually worked in environments and stuff. That's just the truth of the matter. So I would say be realistic on what industries you would want to work in, but also think about what are some backup places where you would want to work, because I think like B2B companies might be a little bit more easier to kind of reach and obtain. So what kind of companies would you want to work in, and what do they value the most? So I would say try to dig deep and try to have honest conversations with people. I know some people might not want to give you the time of day, or might not want to be straightforward, but I think I watched this YouTube channel called High Resolution, for example, and I remember they had Ian Spalter from Instagram, because I think Instagram is an interesting product in my opinion. And this is like 5 years ago, or even 6 years ago. Time just flies by. But I remember they asked him, like, what do you look for in candidates at Instagram? What makes someone hireable? And it completely blew my mind, because it's completely different from what you see on LinkedIn, with a lot of people that's not even in a place to hire, right? Just constantly giving advice. And he said, well, first we look for product thinking, product sense. So when you take 0 to 1, how are you having these conversations with like engineers and product managers? That's the thing that really matters. Second, we look for a high level of craft. So it's that perfect combination is, I'm solving a problem, then am I executing it well, right? He said we're heavy, prototyping culture as well. So hopefully someone can adapt to that. And I was just completely mind blown, because he didn't say anything about process. He didn't say anything about being a nice person to work with, right? He didn't say like all these obvious things that you see on LinkedIn that I keep seeing over and over again from people. And it's like, if you want to work at a company like that, now you know what you need to work on. Once again, it's not necessarily your process. It's working with the product team, right? It's really thinking strategically on how are you going to appease certain people. And I think that you need to ask yourself, what industry am I going to work for? Just to recap, Jeremy, what is this industry actually looking for beyond surface level stuff, right? Like, what do they want in candidates, in a sense? So if I'm really good at coding and I have an interest in coding, what is GitHub looking for? Where they're probably looking for someone who's really strong at coding, someone who has like a passion for that, and someone that has a passion for making things easier for developers, and like developer tools and all that kind of stuff, and like complex software and making trade-offs, right? And understanding like nebulous things. There might be another company that doesn't even believe in research, and they want someone that is just like really good at their craft, and they can just work with product teams. There might be a team like the Sales Navigator team at LinkedIn that is more keen to process, right? And keen to like design thinking and all that other kind of stuff, because of their leadership and the way that they're set up. And I know it's going to be hard to find, like this is stuff that you don't see in a job posting, but these are questions that you really need to ask yourself. Matter of fact, these are questions that you need to ask before you get into any profession, to be honest.
Yeah, dude.
Like whether you want to be an actress or whether you want to be a flight attendant or something, these are professions that you need to be realistic about and kind of ask yourself, Because there's a saying, if you had an easy time making a decision, then you don't know all the facts.
I love that saying. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I'm gonna start using that. I'm gonna steal that. That's okay. So one of the things I want to call out that you just mentioned, I think this is something extremely important, is doing your research about the jobs you want. You mentioned LinkedIn. This is part of the problem with LinkedIn, YouTube, Medium, whatever. Everybody has a voice, and that's great. Everybody can say whatever they want, and that's the free market economy, I guess, if you will, right? And democracy. We can all kind of say whatever we want. But there has to be a filter, right? And you have to be able to actually determine, is this information applicable to me in my personal context, right? So somebody that has always worked in enterprise, for instance, in large internal IT teams, telling you about what to do for your resume and your portfolio is not going to be applicable if you want to get a job at a FANG company, and vice versa. Someone working at a FANG company, if you want to get a job at Cisco, which, I'm not saying that to be like facetious, like people do really want to work at these companies because they're great companies and they pay well and they're very stable and all that stuff. If you want to get a job at Cisco, talking to somebody that worked at Apple is probably not going to get you a job at Cisco, right? So That's one of those things, this is something I think a lot of people just, I don't know why, UX designers, we don't UX our job hunt, what is the outcome? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Who are our users and what do they want to see? And how do I design a thing for them? So I think that's really important. So we talk a little bit about doing the research. I'm curious, any specific advice there about resources maybe, or places someone can go if they do want to work in one area or another? I guess this is hard to answer because it could literally be anything. But any advice for somebody who wants to go do that quote unquote user research on their own quote unquote UX project for their job hunt?
You need to find someone that's going to be completely open with you and candid. There's only a few individuals out there, but hopefully you can find them. Second, and I know that a lot of people will have more success, check out this YouTube channel called High Resolution. I can't recommend it enough. Even though they haven't done interviews in a while, I think surprisingly, a lot of that stuff still stands because it's from a lot of design leaders that worked at really great companies or companies that's really popular. Well, great can be subjective, right? I think we all know that. Sure. But really popular companies, really well-respected companies, once again, respected can also be subjective. Yeah. I'm putting this in quotes, but depending on what designer you talk to. But like Airbnb, Spotify, Netflix, all these other companies, some of these leaders are still working at these organizations. But watch those channels, listen to what those leaders talk about and kind of what they look for. Also, there's this guy named Shane Allen on LinkedIn, especially if you want to go the FANG route. He worked at WhatsApp. He worked at WhatsApp. He also worked at DoorDash. But if you go in his post history, he just has a lot of great facts as well. And then also following Hong, I think we both know Hong. Even though he's really facetious, even though he's super hilarious all the time, I think he's always honest and blunt about a lot of stuff. And that's what I find refreshing, and that he doesn't sugarcoat anything. And I know what he says might hurt and sting, but go back to his interviews that he's done with people like Lena and other different people as well, with various interviews. It's some really great stuff there. That's what I can recommend. And then I will also recommend not going to the ADP list, because I think when a manager meets you on that website, they're mindset wise, they're going to be kind of thinking about, okay, how can I make this a pleasant experience for this person? How can I just at least kind of guide this person in the right way? But really building a relationship with a manager in a way that you can do this, by the way, when it comes to networking, just find someone who has the same common interest that you have, to be honest, to where you're talking about more than design, but eventually coming back to those kind of hard hitting, right, professional topics. Because I've been fortunate enough to have really personal conversations with the managers, with them telling me, hey, this is why I don't hire junior designers. This is what I hate, looking for in candidates, behind closed doors, right? Being upfront, because once you start to understand the jobs to be done of hiring managers, I think you really start to become a worthwhile candidate. And like I said, some things are just going to be out of your control. You're not going to get along with everyone, right, in an interview and all that kind of stuff. But really understanding that jobs to be done, like you said, that user experience in a sense, understanding what they're going through, understanding what they're looking for, will really just help you out a long way, because self-awareness is key. And I know, like I said, it's hard when there's someone on the other end that's controlling, your livelihood. I understand it's personal when it comes to bills, but if you can understand what that other person is going through, right? And you can kind of get a sense of what they're looking for as well, and what would make them happy, then that would be great. And I kind of asked my manager at Disney in one-on-ones and from time to time, hey, how are you doing? How's your mental
Yeah,
health?
dude.
How
Yeah.
do you feel about all this stuff? And I even tell them, hey, I know how you're feeling because we had this stuff going on. And I could just only imagine what you're going through because I know that a lot of people are pointing fingers. And I'll even say, including myself, you know what I mean? But I have to remind myself that your job is not easy as well. And that the stakes are higher for you in certain situations and that I can mess up. So, Jeremy, I apologize for kind of being long winded, but yeah, I just wanted to share that.
I invited you on for you to talk, not for me to talk. That's the whole point. But no, it's funny because one of the things that you mentioned about managers is they're always responsible for looking out for their team, but as humans though, like they want that interaction, they want the support, and depending on the manager, their manager might not give them the support they need. So it's like kind of one of those things, like is having empathy for your team is just so important. And going back, there's a few things I want to call out that you said. First off, Hong, very, very honest. Actually, when I got laid off in November, Hong and I know each other pretty well. I was like messaging him and I was like, dude, can you help me with, give me some advice, blah, blah, blah. And he is so honest, dude. He told me, he's like, you're a solid mid-tier 3 designer. I was like, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, man. You didn't beat around the bush, man. But anyway, no, he's actually, he didn't mean it like insulting. What he meant was like, I don't have the portfolio to go get a job at a Google right now. I'm like, that's fair. Okay. I've been spending my entire career in like internal corporate IT.
Yeah.
I get it, dude. Stick with Cisco. All right. Okay. Anyway, Hong is great. No, but the thing is though, and I think this goes back to your point about ADP list and those kind of speed dating. Someone recently,
Yes.
I didn't come up with that recently. I didn't come up with that. Someone else I was talking to called it speed networking, like speed dating. But the problem with those sites, if you're trying to get advice like this, is that again, the advice matters if the advice needs to fit your context. And when you schedule a random 30-minute meeting with somebody who has no idea who you are, they have no idea what you want, they have no idea what you're trying to achieve, they cannot give you contextually relevant advice about your portfolio, about your resume, about job hunting tips, whatever, in 30 minutes. Like they just can't. So, those things are great to just like meet people and get your foot in the door. And you can use ADP lists for multiple meetings, like you said, but like the important thing is that you build a solid relationship with somebody who, one, cares about you first and foremost, because to your point about being honest, like they have to care about you to be honest. I want you to succeed, so I'm going to be honest with you because you need to hear this. That's like coming from a place of love. And I think it's really hard to find that on those places like that. So, you can obviously schedule multiple meetings with the same person and all that stuff. But I think that's something you need to be really aware of when you're trying to get advice like that is at the basic level, it's about building a meaningful relationship with somebody. Like you said, find out what they like outside of designing and build that rapport with them that way. And, you're not having quote unquote mentor sessions. You're just having conversations with a friend. I mean, that's like ultimately where you really want to get to, So I think those things are like really important, and find someone like a Hong who's willing to tell you that you're a tier 3 designer. Don't waste your time going to apply to FANG because you're just going to end up feeling like a loser. So, I think that's just so important.
I kind of disagree with that because I think like Google and like even Netflix, I think they have roles that you would be good in because Netflix, they have like a lot of internal teams, and even Google, they have like a lot of internal teams. And I actually saw this one case study from this guy that works at Discord, Perry Wang. I don't know. I don't know if he saw like his portfolio went viral.
I don't think so.
And Perry Wang, he was working on like video game kind of IT kind of stuff, but he made it look very appealing. You know what I mean? So I think once again, you can work at those kind of companies. I do think you need to show some kind of like craft or visual proficiency up front, just in case they might want to change you to another role, because this their standards, right? But I do think that at those larger companies, there are roles kind of for everyone. But at the same time, there are like table stakes, right? With just certain things. So I just wanted to point that out to anyone that's listening, whether you're senior, junior, whatever.
If you're at mid tier 3 now, you're not stuck there forever. You just got to put in the effort. And I told him, I'm like, dude, I got 2 kids, man. I got a wife, 2 kids. I got a mortgage. Anybody got time for that? I'm going to get another mid tier 3 job, make my sub 200K salary and live comfortably and not get my unlimited PTO and all that other crap and not have to worry about all the stress of working at a FANG company. All right. So I want to talk about this now. We talk a little bit about the portfolio and we talk about the case study and all that. We can expand on that later, or we can expand that another time. But like when you think about the job listing, this is something that's I think is really important. All these hiring managers, they don't all think alike. What they expect is all different. Looking at those job listings, it's often like word salad, just a bunch of keywords, buzzwords. How do you go through those job listings and really try to, I don't even know what the right word is, extract what it is that they're actually looking for when you see these things that are all over the place?
That's a good question. I don't think you can, to be honest. I think, the hiring process, and I'm pretty sure you've hired candidates. I'm pretty sure you've been on the panel. So if you have, Jeremy, you would know that it's a hot mess. It's not always perfect. Things go on that a lot of people don't see. I remember I followed this guy named something, the IT guy. I cannot remember his name because this is when I was trying to get A+ certifications. I was following his YouTube channel. I'll think of it later and bring it up in this podcast. But he was saying that he was talking about this person that wanted to break in software engineering, right? And he was saying that, I see these job postings just asking for like a full stack engineer and I'm asking to learn all these languages, right? And the guy was like, you poor bastard, you don't understand what's happening. He said, this is what happens between a hiring manager and a recruiter, right? The recruiter or someone in HR comes to them and says, hey, I need you to, at least write me an outline of what you're looking for in a candidate. And the hiring manager says, I don't have time. So the recruiter says, okay, since you don't have time, then let's just sit and you just tell me in a sense what you want. And of course, the hiring manager in that situation is just thinking about their ultimate, list, right, of what they want in a candidate, their dream list. Oh, I want them to know, Figma stuff. Oh, I want them to have like product skills. Oh, I want them to have that. Or they just say, hire, right? Because a lot of times recruiters, I'm not going to say it's like a high turnover, but I noticed when I was working at a company like Career Builder is that a lot of people get thrown onto those like applicant tracking system accounts, or they get thrown on new accounts and they're completely new. So if you have someone that's completely new and doesn't understand UX design, they're just going to copy those job postings from other different places because that's a common practice too. So I just think really understanding what sometimes you don't know. I'm just going to be honest. You don't know what they're looking for. And sometimes you have to either ask the hiring manager, even though they probably won't tell you because they're busy. And, LinkedIn messaging, in my opinion, is not like Messenger or WhatsApp. It's not suited to have like these long-winded messages and like these kind of back and forth, or creating like threads like Slack, right, within messages. When you think about it, it's not made for that, unfortunately. So you would either have to reach out to someone at a company sometimes. Those people that work at the company, maybe due to HR restrictions, don't want to talk to you, or they have personal stuff going on. Don't take it personal. They just don't want to have that conversation with you because it'll probably open up a can of worms or something like that. I've reached out to people and I've kind of gotten lucky in some parts, and some folks were honest with me because I think when you reach out to these people, I think, and I'll use this as an example. I reached out to a company that was similar to Inspire Brands, right? And when I talked to this person, they were telling me, oh, no, this is more of an internal tools role, like more for people in the fast food franchises that's like, putting out orders and stuff or changing the menu. And I was like, OK, so I started asking questions on like, be honest, like, what is the biggest problem right now? Oh, we have a high turnover because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, my manager, we're looking for someone who's really good at systems thinking. Once again, you're not seeing this in a job posting, right? Oh, my manager is someone who comes from like a design agency background. So he's looking at someone that's really good at their craft as well, in a sense, right? She started telling me all this stuff and I was like, oh, I have these experiences in these different areas. And I also asked her about like, be honest with me. Is there any room for like upward mobility, right? Things that you would care about, but also asking these questions, like getting all of the meat out of the way, right? What are you actually looking for? What's the problem that you're facing in your environment? When you work with PMs, right? What level are they at? Are they people that lied to get the job and they came from a marketing background and they don't know what you're doing? So design has to pick up the work. Cause all they like, you're laughing, but all that stuff really matters, right? Engineers,
Yeah.
like, how much stuff can they build, right? Are they really talented? Or are they just small and like, once again, talented is subjective, but still, are they talented? Are they small and overworked? Or is there abundance of them where they want to push the limits, right? Do they even care about user experience, right? Be honest. What is the status of your environment? And then you can ask about, oh, is there room for like upward mobility? Is there room for, growth within the company? Is your manager, be honest with me, very competent, right, at their job? How do you feel about this person? Because I was just lucky in that situation to get this person to tell me about that. And like I said, sometimes you won't have that in-depth conversation with some people. But I can say that if you have people in your network and they used to work at certain companies or certain organizations as well, you can also reach out to them and get their full experience or like a really great story, right, on what happened and why they left.
See, I think this goes back again to what you were saying a second ago about having that meaningful relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because these are people that, like you said, there's going to be a lot of people. You reach out to somebody randomly, HR manager especially, they're never going to respond, honestly. The chances of an HR manager of an actual, well, first of all, the chance of finding the manager for that job listing is probably pretty low unless you know exactly like who to ask, because they're
Yeah.
usually not on those
Mhm.
recs. Even if you find a recruiter or something, and a recruiter's going to have a million people messaging them, their
Yep.
job is technically to answer those questions, but in theory, like they're probably overworked, like you said.
I also want to say that to anyone that's junior, you have to pay your dues. And like Jeremy, we could talk about it on another call when it comes to portfolio, but you just have to pay your dues and you have to get that real world experience. And I tell a lot of juniors this, and I understand like how daunting it could be to do this, but like and I just want to point this out as a side note. I always tell them to either like don't do a nonprofit, don't do a small business. Maybe you can do that kind of starting out, but your main focus is going to the Y Combinator, reaching out to, a founder because they don't have any money in a Y Combinator. Like there's people that's like in their 20s, right? That are like entrepreneurs that you can work with. Like once you are confident about your skills, your craft, and work on a low stakes project starting out, just really low stakes, and tell them that you're starting out and it needs to be low stakes, and then build from there. Because what's going to be appealing to hiring managers, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but I think if I was a hiring manager, and it makes sense that if I had two candidates and I had a candidate who had nothing but like fake boot camp projects, but then I had another candidate that was like super scrappy. They were a person that, worked with a bunch of startups across the board. They knew what it was like to work with engineering, product teams, and all of that. They kind of learned from their mistakes as well, even though they're still going to make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. And they had some really cool stuff that was actually out there, right? That was shipped. Like, who's going to be more appealing when you think about it? And like I said, you're competing against college students that have that kind of experience and that skill set. Not all of them, because some of them create crap portfolios too. Matter of fact, a lot of them, just pointing it out. But if you start to get that experience and that breadth and depth of experience, like kind of in your work, then that's what you would do. Which is why I think also a lot of companies are asking for like staff and principal product designers, because I think they look at these individuals as, oh, these individuals have had this kind of breadth and depth of experience, right? Of working as a manager or working at multiple startups or agencies or even starting their own company. So I know they're at this level and they meet this criteria, this bar already. And I would say that for anyone, you should aspire to that as well. So I just wanted to kind of point that tidbit out too, Jeremy, that you just have to pay your dues. Because if you look at Kanye West, I should have never brought his name up, but if you look at any artist that's famous today, if you look at any basketball player like Kobe Bryant, for example, like I don't think a lot of people realize this, but he had to pay his dues, right?
Yeah.
Like this dude started off, he came in a draft class that was like stacked. Like look it up on YouTube. That was stacked. And I think he was like the number 6 draft pick. He came up around people like Garnett and Vince Carter, right? That seemed more promising and that seemed more like the future. He was in the shadow of Shaq for so many years. And a lot of people called him like a Scottie Pippen follow-up, right? As well. But he became the face of an organization over time, right? That has so many legendary players that came through it. But yet when people think of the Lakers, they think of him. How did he do that? Well, he had to pay his dues and he had to grind even when no one was looking. So if anyone is listening to this, no matter what level you're at, and you might live somewhere like Iowa where it's like a secondary market, right? You might not feel that you have, the experience of a FAANG company or appealing work, or if you're a junior and you feel like the odds are against you, remember that you need to just pay your dues and you need to just work hard and grind even when no one is looking. No, you don't need to go on LinkedIn and post and get a lot of attention. You just need to grind. You need to, even if you see posts that you like and you want to be active, add a lot of thoughtful like comments to it as well. Like really add to the conversation or reach out to people in private, but you don't need to be that visible. And I would say that you just need to grind. Like once again, if you're not familiar with basketball, for anyone that's on this call listening, or if you know the story, just look at Kobe Bryant's story, because I think a lot of people forget when someone like that becomes so successful, like they forget what they like what that person, had to go. And sometimes that person forgets too, but it's kind of interesting because other people forget, right? Like the humble beginnings that person had. And for me, there's like some people that forget like the humble beginnings that I've even had, And matter of fact, I'm still experiencing humble beginnings as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I think that's an important thing to note. And This is also, I think, something going back to tying it back into the conversation that we're having. It's like, paying your dues, those are the things that people might be looking at. But like, to your point, are you going to be judging me? Or are you going to be looking at like me versus like with my boot camp case studies, just a bunch of made up stuff versus a bunch of other people who have done all these things that you're talking about, right? Like you have to know if that's something that is that your competition. I mean, this is again part of your your research as, if you're UXing your job hunt. These are things that you should be looking into and saying the places that I want to work are looking for those things. And so I also need to do those things because it's also possible that the places you're looking to go may not be looking at those things if you're looking at different companies, right? So like, I think that's something to note. Again, like hiring managers, they could be all over the place. You might trying to be applied to a company, for instance, that only takes like interns or something from like one very specific regional college or something. And if you didn't know that, you're never going to get your foot in the door because they're only taking stuff from this one place. So I think that's something like really important to note here. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I think this is also really important when we look at like those job titles, like we talked about. I've seen this firsthand where certain job descriptions are approved by HR, so I can get a job rec posted today if I use that old job title. But if I want to add to it or change it in some way, it's got to go through this whole review process. So a hiring manager can say, just get it out there. We just need to get this job listed. So like that kind of stuff happens all the time. And like you said, the HR person will just make stuff up or copy and paste stuff from another job. So it's like, it's really hard to say. But I think this goes back again to the importance of building those solid relationships, right? Because like if you've got a meaningful relationship with the companies that you've targeted, people that work at the companies that you've targeted specifically, you're not going to be able to get the HR manager on the phone. You're probably not going to get the recruiter on the phone or a message or a meeting, whatever, but you can get that person that knows you well and you can ping them and you can say, hey, Kerry, I saw that this job opened up. Let's chat. This job description sounds weird to me. Is this right? That's how you get insight into that. It's not going to be last minute and it's not going to be the day the job gets posted. It's certainly not going to be weeks after the job's posted, right? Like, because by that time, you've already got 1,000 people applying. So, this is the other thing too, the meaningful relationships piece. If you can get a meaningful relationship with someone who works at the place that you want, Kerry's looking out for me. And he's going to say, hey, Jeremy, I would be a great fit for this role that we haven't even posted yet. And so that's when Kerry's like, hey, we're going to post this role soon. I think you'd be a great fit. Or you kind of fit, whatever. I think you might need to add this thing. Make sure in your resume, your portfolio, you talk this thing up versus this other thing. And they're going to give you that inside scoop. So I think that's something like really important because again, the job descriptions are all over the place, which is again, goes back to this idea that like, once we get the job though, right? This is the next thing I want to talk about. Once we actually get the job, let's say we get the job, we land that new job, all these hiring managers, they have different expectations. They have different things that they want. As a new person that just lands the job, how do you then go about figuring out what does this hiring manager actually need, actually want, actually expect?
Man, that's a very good question. I would say, actually, I would challenge someone to, before you even start the job, ask those kind of questions in an interview. I think hiring managers will love those kind of questions and kind of challenging them and seeing like what's their hiring ethos. Because I think like you want to see if this person is going to be a jerk or not. Like one good question to ask someone, and I know that this will not be comfortable for a lot of people. Once again, no matter what the experience, but ask them, name a time when you fired someone, right? Because it's going to be very telling. In a sense, because if a person is blaming that individual, right, and say, "Oh, good riddance, I'm glad they're gone. They just couldn't cut it," then you probably don't want to work for that person, even if they do come off nice, because you're not going to get the support you need there. But if they come off and say, "You know what," and they say something like this, right, Jeremy? Because I'm pretty sure you've seen this before. They just wasn't really a good fit for that team, and they weren't a good fit for that company, and I kind of helped them, find another job somewhere else and they're killing it. You know what I mean? Like they're a really great fit in a sense and it works out. Like something like that. Or it's like, man, I really helped this person and did like, and I even stayed away for a performance review, right? But if they're saying that they like chastised that person in a sense or reprimanded that person, then you probably don't want to work for them, especially if that's their first go-to, right? So getting all that out of the way before you even start is really great. But I think going in and also understanding the environment that you're going in. Because like I said, some environments are not going to have like that they're going to have probably a salary cap, right? On how much you can make in a sense, how much they can pay you, how much, opportunities as far as like upward mobility and like promotions are going to be afforded to you in a sense. And if you are stuck in a certain situation or environment where you're boxed in, then there's not going to be much growth or much room for you, even if you do have a manager that's fighting for you. Because some stuff immediately might be out of their control, even though there's always stuff anyone can improve on, right? Like when you think about it. So I would say in that first one on one, though, bringing it back up within that one on one and telling them your goals and kind of what you want to do, but also understanding like what are they looking for on this team and what's the biggest problems they're facing, right? It's almost like similar to a manager and anyone that's in management or new to management that's listening to this. And I'm saying this because the first manager that I've ever had in user experience, he did this and it just works. You go to the CEO of the company, especially if it's a smaller company, right? A startup or something. You go to the CEO and you ask them, what are the problems that you're experiencing? It doesn't have to be design related or anything, but what are the problems that you're experiencing? What do you want to make better about this organization and this environment, right? And I was like blown away by that because he started to get that buy-in from his peers. So even approaching the manager in that sense of, what are you looking for? What are some of the problems that you're experiencing, right? What are some things that you would want to do? Those are things to figure out. But if you're very early entry level in your career, it's probably going to be more like technical things that you need to get better at, right? Like the simple things, like the foundations of things that you need to understand and play areas where you need to get better before you start jumping into strategy and jumping into these other areas. But for senior product designers, right, or designers with a little bit more experience that are really good from a foundational level, right, with the basic essentials of their skills, then you probably need to start having those conversations on things you can do and kind of going above and beyond on your job because now you know what the problem is. But I would also say just not the manager, but people in the product team overall that you're having these conversations with too. Even if you're a junior, to be honest, just talking to them, having icebreakers, getting to know them, understanding their problems. Because I promise you, when you do that, they'll be like, holy shit, this is not a person that's just thinking about design. They're thinking about kind of, the business at large and kind of, with the things that I'm going through.
I love that. Yeah, that's something I think is so important. Like when you start a new job, it's like not trying to just go and start doing work, not just like, let me go design a bunch of wireframes or prototypes, blah, blah, blah. It's just talking to the people on the team, and straight up asking them, like, what do you expect from this role? Like what happened to the last person? Like with the last person, did y'all get along well? Was there conflict? Is there some reason why there was conflict? Like, what did they do that you didn't appreciate? How do you wish they worked better than you, So that's the stuff I think is so important.
But once again, ask that in an interview. I want to point that out. Just please ask that in an interview before you even get hired on that job. If you don't, like, if you have the privilege and you don't need the money right now and you don't need a job and you're like in between jobs or something. And I just want to point that out because I know that this market is rough. But if you care about your growth and all that, even if you care about growth more than you care about money, right? At this point in your career, no matter what level you're at. So I just wanted to point that out too, Jeremy, but go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was just going to say, like, setting expectations in the first week, and just understanding all that stuff. Which leads me to the next question is that, these corporate America, big companies, small companies, whatever, in between, everything in between, they all function differently. Who decides what is different? Who creates the roadmaps? Who decides on priorities? Who sets the timing? Who sets the budgets? Who sets the resources? How many engineers versus developers? Everything else, all different, totally different.
Yep.
So learning about that as you onboard now, what does a designer do? These are again, to your point, questions that you could ask in an interview for sure. Let's assume you already got the job. How do you go about figuring out all those things so that you can find your place? Because again, those things are never in the job description.
I would say first and foremost, probably get a coach or a mentor, to be honest. But once again, I would just recommend just building organic relationships with people that have things with common interests. I think I'm at the point right now where, and I'm really proud of this, and I really hate to admit this, but I'm gonna admit this. I used to be kind of like, and I know a lot of human beings are like this, right? Just like if you go to a certain city and women like men that got a lot of money, or people like folks that have a lot of status and money, that's who they're attracted to, right? So I used to be attracted to like a lot of designers who worked at FAANG companies because I thought they knew the most and were the most talented, just to be completely honest. Or designers that came from certain background, right? Or that worked at a bunch of different startups and that were like advisors and founders. But you can find, talent anywhere. And that you can find people, and it goes beyond a portfolio, right? Like these are the intangibles that you don't see. You can find talent anywhere. So finding someone that you can build a really great relationship with, like personally, and then getting them to give you advice about certain things within your career. Because I think even outside of work, you're going to need like a second voice, right? Of stuff that you can talk to in advice and things and tips that they can give you within your experience. Even like Jeremy, even with you, I think there's a lot of stuff that a lot of advice that you can give me right now, stuff that I'm facing at Disney. To be
All right,
honest,
man.
because when we spoke last time, you just had like a lot of breadth and depth of experience that has nothing to do with design, and in
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of your job, a lot of the problems you face and being a good problem solver, right? A lot of times problem solving has nothing to do with design. And that's what I've learned early in my career as well. So having those kind of conversations with people, even with your manager, if you have a really great manager, that's even better, right? You can have these these conversations on how to grow your career, where you can go strategically. Because in my opinion, and anyone, once again, that's listening to this, not just the junior, but managers as well. In my opinion, and Jeremy, I would love to get your thoughts on this, but a really great manager is someone, it's like, I'm going to do this comparison to sports. If you don't know anything about sports, look up a sports GM and also look at a sports coach and what their like roles are. Or ask someone that's like in a basketball or football in America, ask them, what is the purpose of a coach, right, on a team? If you think about a coach on a team, they're thinking about how to utilize their players in the right time in the right positions. They're thinking strategically about how can they counter that other team, right? They're setting their players up in really great positions. A sports GM, on the other hand, these are people that are thinking about the different chess pieces, right, and the components of their teams and what players from another team is going to complement that existing team, right? And making these trades and figuring out like salary caps and all that kind of stuff. It's surface level what I just said, but if you combine the two, in my opinion, that's what a design manager is supposed to do. Figure out the chess pieces of different players on their team, right? Jeremy is really good at information architecture. He's really great at that. So I'm going to place him on his team to get stuff started. Or he might not even be great. I mean, like even if we're just not talking about tools, right? He might have this strength in this area skill wise that I can put him on this team. Oh, Kerry is kind of new. He's kind of fresh. He's in the industry, right? There's a lot that he needs to know. So I'm going to have him go in between teams. Even though I know this is something like for a principal or a staff, I'm going to kind of switch the rules up because he seems like a person that's kind of mentally all over the place, right? And he can do this. Like, that's what a great manager does because they set your team up for success. They put people in the right positions to succeed. And they're also, of course, going to meetings, right? Dealing with strategy and all that kind of stuff. But trust me, these are great managers that think about these things strategically, right? And they even share with you, this is going to be your future. This is what I have planned for you. What do you think? Almost like how when you got on this call with me, Jeremy, it's a similar thing when you was like, oh, this is what I have planned for you. This is where I kind of want to go from the outline and from your email and just make mess of all this stuff, right? Of all this documentation that we have everywhere. So, Kerry, what do you think about that,
Yeah.
right? And my response was, hell yeah, let's roll with it, right?
Yeah,
Let's just
dude.
do whatever. And it should be that kind of relationship with a mentor or a manager or a coach. And if you're not getting that, then I would recommend just building those relationships with other people, constantly taking notes, constantly asking questions, constantly figuring out where you will want to be, and just keep soul searching because you will find it. Or looking at YouTube videos like High Resolution or other different videos and following Hong and reaching out to other different people because you will find it. Listen, people are very busy. It's not always going to be perfect, right? A person is not always going to respond to you because they could be turned off by your profile picture or what you have in your profile. It's not that black and white. And I just want to point that out to other people. At the end of the day, just be yourself. And I want to point that out too. Just be yourself and be honest with what you want. If you don't know what you want in your career, because I'm not sure if there's going to be a follow-up question, but I just want to say really quickly, figure it out like dating. And I think you brought up like ADP list, right? How it was similar to speed dating. But this guy named Adam brought this up to me. He's a really great senior product designer at Story. He told me this. He said iterating is sort of like dating, right? It's not
Yeah.
finding out what you want, but it's actually finding out what you don't want in a sense in a
Right.
partner.
Yeah. That's
And I
true.
think when it comes to like, job hopping, when it comes to like iterating, when it comes to trying out different archetypes, right, within a job, it's in your early career. And matter of fact, I would say it's never too late, to be honest. Like no
Mm.
matter what age
Yeah,
you're
I
at,
agree.
but still early in your career. And even if you're in the 20s, if you're listening to this and you're not even in a UX profession, spend that time early in your career experimenting and finding out what you don't like. So when you get to that point of, management or you get to a senior role and someone comes to you and say, hey, I think you will be really good at this team. You can say, well, I probably would kill it, but that wouldn't be my strong suit. This is where you can better utilize me at, right? once again, just wanted to point all that out. Because like I said, it's not that black and white. And it can be different variables for different people and different results.
Yeah, I love that too. It's sometimes it's a lot harder to figure out what you do want than to figure out what you don't want.
Yeah.
And so I mean, you could spend a shorter amount of time, I think, figuring out what you don't want. And so figure that. I love that. That's a good analogy. I actually like that a lot. Yeah, I think like speaking about like mentors and stuff, one of the things that I think is really important, especially when you get a job at like a new company, is to have those one-on-ones and like make meaningful relationships and find an internal mentor, somebody who works there that can actually help navigate the internal politics if there's really bad politics or just the weird processes and quirks, good or bad of that organization. And an internal mentor, you're not going to find that on ADP list. You're not going to find it on LinkedIn probably, but it's just like, this is something I say a lot. It's like people stop networking when they land the job, but like networking internally, especially in large companies, 1,000-person orgs or 50-person orgs, doesn't matter. Like going and get coffee with everybody that you'd work with, if you're remote, virtual coffee chats, whatever, those things are so important. And finding somebody that can vouch for you, allies and sponsors and things like that, it's incredibly important.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head. I'm not going to go long on this. I'm not going to go long because you have a lot of good stuff, but I'm going to point this out to anyone listening on this call. One is you should always keep networking no matter what. You should always keep building relationships with people no matter what, even if it's inside the company, because you just never know. And I will also say this. There's this saying I think it's by Maya Angelou, that says that you can tell a lot about a person by the way that they treat someone that can't do anything for them. Right?
Yeah, dude. Mm-hmm.
And I would say be very cautious of that, especially junior designers, because I've seen some people who, reach out to me for advice, but then they go into the industry and they get a big head and they like completely say, I don't want to talk to any other juniors. I just want to talk to people that's going to get me a job. You never know, like for anyone at any level, right? Like just give people a chance. And if you don't have the bandwidth, just tell them that. It doesn't cost anything to send them that message. You know what I mean? But like, just treat people with kindness, treat people with respect. Like this is something I'm still working on, by the way. And the problem that I have on LinkedIn is that I can't tell if like accounts are real or not. You know what I mean? Or people are trying to sell me scams. To be fair, and if you do reach out to me, just if you reach, I'm not saying send me like a thoughtful message. I'm not saying just send me a formality. It could be like, hey, Kerry, I listened to the podcast or whatever. That's it. Like it doesn't have to be any formal. Like record a message after that. You know what I mean? Because I understand how hard it is to write like a message. But I'm just saying that just treat people with kindness. Be fair to people at companies as well. Because you just never know. Like there were people who like gave me the cold shoulder, like starting out. And I don't know if folks just didn't think I was going to amount to anything. But now that I'm working at Disney, I just get like connection requests all the time. I get like a bunch of people, like even at this boot camp, right? Or in this program that I was in that I didn't get along with, they reached out to me in message in a sense. Or and certain people reached out to me and, imagine how that person feels. It's like, what? You kind of threw me under the bus in this situation where you didn't want to talk to me, but now you want to ask me how things are going on at Disney. So just be mindful of that because you never know where someone is going to go. And you even never know if someone's going to be the next billionaire or start their own company. No matter how like inconsequential that question that person is asking or how like relevant that person might seem, right, to your point in life. So I just want to point that out. Networking is key.
Yeah, so I think all that stuff is incredibly important. Never stop networking, especially inside a big company when you don't know. You need somebody to help you figure out the players, the rules. Using our game analogy, I like to think of work as like a game, infinite game at least. There's no end, there's no points in theory, but we're just trying to play as long as possible, and we're trying to just get to the point where we can retire and go sip margaritas on a beach somewhere. Learn the players, learn the rules, and figure out what you can do within those constraints and work with what you got. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do. This is maybe a good way to close this out and get your final thoughts here. But, your first, month, and I think I just posted about this on LinkedIn today too. I was just kind of thinking about this, but like your first month or so on your new job is like figuring that stuff out. It's not creating wireframes, solving problems, answering questions, being right, giving insightful insights. It's just figuring it all out, man. That's your job for the first like 3-4 weeks. Once you do that, then, in theory, all that stuff, then exactly what your boss wants, exactly what your stakeholders want, exactly how your team works. And you can just start kicking ass.
Yeah, dude, you're making a bunch of great great things. I wish there was a feature on this app that was like similar to Twitch, right? How they have those features where you can send emojis and stuff. Even though I know this is going to be like this is not going to be like a video or
Actually,
anything.
does there I can add music and stuff in Riverside?
Oh, really? Or even like effects and stuff that they do on Twitch. Like, because I wish I could send someone saying 100. You know what I mean?
That'd be cool. Like anytime somebody makes a joke, I could just be like, boom, if there's like a anyway, there isn't, but all right, dude, cool. All right, Kerry. So we've had you for a little while now. Any closing thoughts? Anything else that we didn't get a chance to talk about? As hiring managers, you never know what they think. You just gotta figure it out for yourself. Unfortunately, any closing advice before we get out of here?
Yeah, I want to talk about intangibles for a moment. And hopefully I can do
Let's
this
do
in
it.
another 3 minutes.
No,
Hopefully
it's
I
all
can
good,
do
man.
this in a short period of time. Okay, it's all good. Are you?
Yeah, go ahead,
You
man.
giving me the green light? Okay,
Go ahead, baby.
great. So let's talk about intangibles for a moment, right? With working at these companies too, because I don't want you to think as an individual that you have to do like amazing shit to work somewhere or be considered a really great person, because you probably don't. But let's get into it. So I remember asking, and like this is stuff that you don't see in the job postings, right? This is stuff that you're probably not going to see people bring up, but I'll get into first. Just looking at people's profiles. There's this woman. Her name is Nina Gematriva. She works at she used to work at Google. Then she went to Instagram, and then she went to Facebook Meta, right? I mean, Instagram is under Meta, but then she went to Facebook Meta, and now she works at Apple.
Oh, wow, okay.
And if you look at her like featured section, like you will see that she lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes design. And that if you click on some of her links that she has to offer, it's like her Behance profile. I'm pretty sure most of the people that's listening to this call knows how Behance work. If you go to her Behance profiles, she has stuff outside of design, like photography and other stuff that's feature that has the bookmark thing on it, right? Like on her case studies in a sense. And no one didn't tell her to do that. Like she does illustration and all this other kind of stuff. And once again, I don't think it's to just show off or show other people that she's doing it like you would see other folks promoting themselves on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
she's doing that because she's like, she loves it. And you can clearly see that. And that with Nina, like companies like Apple and even Instagram, they hire people who can kind of go on above and beyond on that. So you kind of show your value and your worth, right? Like in an intangible of showing that, once again, like I mentioned earlier, going through multiple startups, right? Helping people, building successful organizations. Another example that I want to use, this guy that I talked to who used to work at Square. And I remember asking him, because I was interested in Square at one point in time, and I still am. If anyone's working from Square, hey, holler at me. But anyway, I remember asking him, what kind of candidates are you looking for? And I'm surprised that he told me this like this, because it's rare that you get individuals that say this kind of stuff, right? But he was like, oh, at Square, it's rare that like junior or mid-level people get hired. They mostly look for senior people, and the senior people that they're attracted to, or the senior people that's appealing to them on a product design team, are folks who either own their own business or people that were entrepreneurial in a sense. And this person that I talked to, he was entrepreneurial because he even wrote a Medium article how he made a startup and it failed completely and all that kind of stuff. And it just makes sense, right? Because Square, they have small business owners. So you want someone who understands that, like that's their, bread and butter. That's their
Right.
clientele
Makes
in a
sense.
sense. And it's like with an app like Instagram, I can see why they will want those kind of candidates who shine in those different areas, because Instagram, when you think about content creators, right, and people that use that app, that you have like Jeremy, I don't know about you, but I can rarely name apps out there that appeal to like teenagers that are 13 or preteens that are 13 years old, all the way to like presidents or politicians or like scientists and all
Yeah.
these other different people that use it for different things, And I just want to point out to people, these are intangibles, right? That you need to understand of what people are looking for. Like next time you ask a question, ask about those intangibles to someone to see if they will tell you that work at certain organizations, right? What are they looking for? Because in my opinion, you just can't say that you go above and beyond on the job. Like you really have to show it. Like you can't say you're all this and you're that. You're good at visual design, and then you have nothing to show for it in your portfolio. You can't say that you are a person that thinks outside of the box when you don't show it when you present your slide deck presentation, right? At a company. Like you just can't say all of those things in a sense. You really have to back it up. Like you have to back it up like 100% and show those people, because actions do speak louder than words. And people, whether you think they're looking or not, they are looking. Because I look at a bunch of people's LinkedIn profiles all the time. And I just want to say that This is the main reason why I think a lot of companies are hiring principal and staff product designers, because they automatically believe that, and I'm pretty sure you think that too, right, Jeremy? That in my opinion, a staff or a principal product designer is someone who does have that breadth and depth of experience,
Yep.
not to that
Yep.
extent of the two people that I admire, but they've been throughout life. Like even with yourself, Jeremy, like every time when I've had conversations with you, when I see your LinkedIn post, it's just clear that you've had like a bunch of life experiences that can't be taught.
You could tell
And
because
that,
all the gray in the beard.
yeah,
That's just how you-
and not even that, but just wisdom, right? And all this kind of stuff. And I just remember this like manager telling me, a really great guy. Matter of fact, he's a director at this small startup, like really smart guy. He has the credentials to back it up, right? He told me that when I have a staff product designer come on my team, my expectations of them is making that product team better. And I
Yeah,
was like,
mentoring,
man, those are
absolutely.
some lofty expectations. But when I think about it, it's like, yeah, if a
I don't
person
know.
own their own business, if we're not just talking about the pedigree, right? But the soft skills that come along with it, right? The experience and the wisdom. It's like they can talk to like a product manager that might be inexperienced. They can talk and get, and win over devs, right? And other different stakeholders. They can do their own thing without being micromanaged in a sense. So anyone that's listening to this call, I don't care what level you're at, because I think this affects people on all levels. Like think about those intangibles next time and ask those kind of questions so you can get your foot in the door. Once again, you won't always get those kind of questions. People won't give you the time of day because they think you either won't listen or they have personal stuff going on. Do not take it personal, but always think about those intangibles and think about what you need to do in order to stand out. Once again, people that's like automatically passionate about it, they're just going to beat you out. That's just the reality of it. If you're not passionate about it, you're just doing it to make a paycheck, that's fine. But realistically, just know where you're going to go with that. But if you want to be passionate, if you want to learn more, if you want to develop your craft, right? If you want to develop like building relationships with people, then you will go further. So that's what I want to end it off on.
I love it, dude. Yeah, for me, staff is 100% a leadership role. I mean, you might be an individual contributor, you might not have direct reports, you might not be doing HR type end of year reviews and salaries and promotions and things like that, but you are, as a staff and up, 100%, I believe that's a leadership role. And part of your job as staff is to mentor the rest of the team, I think. If you are going off and never talking to the rest of your team, you're not answering questions, you're not helping them to be better, I don't think you deserve to be staff. That's my personal opinion. But that should be absolutely like part of it. It's funny because it's an intangible thing. Like there's probably that expectation, but how often is that in a staff level job description? Like maybe I've seen mentor coach kind of things like a sort of alluded to in some jobs, depends. But like you said, I think that's like definitely something that you probably wouldn't read in a job description unless you asked. But
yeah, got to have a conversation with the manager, right, about it, or
Hell
someone
yeah,
that's
dude.
in like a directing role. So
Yeah, you're right. All right, Kerry. So we've got a few questions I like to ask all my guests before we get out of here to help all of our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. Do you have some time to stick around? You got a hard stop? You got to get going?
Yeah,
or you
definitely,
good?
man.
You got some time?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
I'll
All right.
block off my calendar for you,
Hell
dude.
yeah,
So we're good.
right on, man. All right, good. Yeah, I've never had a guest not have time, so that would definitely ruin my streak. So, all right. What is your favorite non-design book?
Man, there are a lot out there because at first I was thinking like comic books. There's also this book called The Paradox of Choice, which is pretty interesting. But one book that I want to recommend to people, especially folks coming out of college or some kind of tech program and is fixated like on process, Smart Brevity. It's something that I have to work on. As you can see on this call, it's something that a lot of people have to work on. And it's a really great book. It's really short. It's really easy to read. They have a bunch of infographics as well.
Nice.
It has a bunch of different chapters on like how to send an email, right? How to speak to people in the workplace, how to create slide deck presentations that are to the point and very brief. And it's just pretty interesting because like even at agency, right? Like the two dudes from that agency, like the two Arthurs, and it came out last year too. And so it's like really new and up to date. Like it's really relevant too. But those two dudes, they even like display humility, which I love as well. Cause they was like, when we were working in certain organizations, people would tell us that we're not doing this right, or it doesn't make sense to this audience. And they even have this one bit in it about the Pentagon, how when Donald Trump came into office, how a lot of people started realizing that like one of the positive things about Trump coming into office, that politics was like convoluted for the average American, or for the average person. And that even when they did briefings in the Pentagon, it would always be just so convoluted that a lot of people couldn't understand it, even the people that was working there. I'm not quoting this verbatim, but they were saying that the director from the Pentagon reached out to them and wanted them to like tone down on like the verbiage and all of that and make it simple when he was sending out like mass emails or something like that. It's a really, really great book. I think anyone, no matter what profession you in, can learn from it. I love it.
All right, right on. Yeah, it might be the first time I've ever heard anyone say there was a positive coming out of Donald Trump's presidency. But, hey, there's always a silver lining, I guess. I'm sure some people.
Yeah, I mean, I think he saved journalism, but that's another story for another day, Yeah.
Yeah, I could see the way he dumbed down things, I guess. Dumbed down might be the wrong way to say that. But he, I guess that's his style. He made it. He talked like he was like, what, 8th grade reading level or 8th grade speaking level or something like that, which, whether or not he's, that intelligent, another team somebody else will decide that. But, made it more accessible, I guess, made it easier for other people to get into, I guess is a positive. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. All right. I don't want to keep talking about Donald Trump. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. All right, dude, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
I would say I do not follow podcasts, believe it or not. I don't necessarily. I'm not into them, but there are YouTube channels that are similar to podcasts that I put on in the background, or that I open up another computer screen or a dual monitor and watch. So there's two. They're tied, right? One is FD Signifier. There's a lot of YouTube channels that I could talk about all day that's really great, but FD Signifier, he has like a lot of great video essays. This dude was an educator. He talks about just a lot of issues that are in the Black community, but I just think it's a lot of issues that a bunch of people can relate to, because I see a bunch of folks that are not Black that are in his comments. And of course they say that, right? I know that because they're saying it, because you can't look at the avatar and tell that. But they really appreciate it. And he talks about other stuff too. Like there's this interesting video about how running backs in football are underpaid. And at the end, he kind of ties that and correlates that to how we're getting ripped off in corporate America. Because we're brainwashed to think that, we should be happy. We should be grateful. But it's like, no, we should want more. So for example, here's a crazy thing. Always brought up that product designers at a certain level should start making like $1 million because of just like the revenue that companies receive. You know what I mean? From product
Google
design.
Billions of dollars. Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah. So I think FD Signifier is one. Another one is Internet Pit Stop. I think it's a really great YouTube channel for people that are into gaming and anime. He actually did like a 4-hour video. And yes, I watched it all in increments, but a 4-hour video on like anime backgrounds. And it was just like super cool and super thoughtful when you look into these other different cultures and stuff. And he also did like a in 1 hour video on Pokemon's like region design, like the rise and fall of it. And I was big into Pokemon back in the day. I'm pretty sure you remember when it was that craze going on.
Absolutely. It's still big, by the way. My kids are still into Pokemon. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I am, too. I collect a bunch of Pokemon cards. I just remember, I remember a lot of people critique for Pokemon is that, it's a cash cow like franchise. It's not really that deep. Digimon's, television show is much better. These like RPG games are much better. But then when you start to look into the region design, you start to see like that Eastern philosophical lens all the way up to Generation 5, right? This is when they start basing stuff on New York and Hawaii and all these other different places. But you start to see like the love and care and detail and the thought that they put into like world building in all these places. So when I watch this stuff from Internet Pit Stop, and when you talk about like game design and all that stuff and storytelling and creative art direction, you start to think, especially working at Disney, right? You start to implement that kind of stuff into your work.
I imagine you'd have to. Yeah, a place like Disney, right? Like that's just sort of like table stakes is storytelling.
Oh, yeah. But I would even say at a B2B company, you still have to implement that kind of stuff into your work to kind of, whether you're presenting it right or whether you're, working on that stuff. So yeah, Internet Pit Stop and also FD Signifier. Highly recommend if anyone has a dual monitor, because trust me, you want to see some of the stuff on the screen, and you can also put it in the background too. But you want to see the stuff that they're talking about too, like visually and also listening while working, doing heads down work. So yeah.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I don't do a lot of YouTube videos, to be honest, mostly because like I don't want to pay for YouTube Red and get like the like you can turn off in the background.
Yeah.
Can you do
get
that?
An ad blocker.
Well, not just that, it's not the ads. When you close YouTube, it turns off. Like on your phone at least. Like if you close YouTube, it stops the video. So like if you pay for the new like upgraded thing, whatever, you don't get ads anymore. But you could leave the app open and you can listen to the stuff more like a podcast. Which really really like drives me nuts, because there's a lot of cool like YouTube videos that I would just watch and just listen while I like cut the grass or wash the dishes or
Yeah.
something. But anyway, it's stupid. Every goddamn subscriptions, man. Anyway,
So this is what I'll do. I'll send you a link, and then I'll send you a link where you can download videos that you want to have. That you can keep it running in the background. Yeah, really good quality.
Make you do that.
Like after this call, I'll send you a link. And anyone else that's listening to this, they just want to know more about me, or they want to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Feel free. Like I said, caveat: send me a message. Too many like spam accounts and hackers.
I know. There's your intro. There's your hey, I want that thing. We got something in common. We want to get the videos from YouTube. All right. Yeah. What is your favorite meal? This could be something you cook, something your grandma used to cook, some you had at a restaurant somewhere. Favorite meal?
My grandmother, man. I would say for now a steak. I think with the steak, it's one of those things where it has to be cooked just right. It's almost like similar to a design portfolio, right? Where it's just different from. It's kind of weird because, like, with my philosophy on things, I think with a steak, it's something that's like depending on like the temperature of like rare, medium, well, all that kind of stuff, right? Depending on like that. So I like to go to expensive steakhouses to treat myself from time to time. And I've been to like, steakhouses in San Francisco, New York, of course, Atlanta, other different places. I would say steak because of not only just the meal itself, but almost like tea, right? What tea represents as a drink in a sense. How it's like very communal, how it's for people to sit down and have conversations and talk, right? How there's tea parties in certain cultures and all that kind of stuff. I think with steaks, it is that kind of thing where it creates that certain ambiance, that certain vibe, that certain expectation of a dish. But other than that, I would say like seafood, like crustaceans, like crabs, lobsters, stuff like that. But that stuff also in certain situations have to be cooked right. And then shrimp. I don't think that shrimp is a crustacean. I don't know. But shrimp as well. So steak and surf and turf. Yeah, surf and turf, I guess. But steak,
What is your favorite way to cook a steak? You got a favorite? Grilled, broiled,
it depends. It's going to depend on a steak.
Okay.
Because it could be like Wagyu. It could be like porterhouse steak. Could be like tomahawk, right? Could be a New York strip or something. I think I like a New York strip kind of burnt to the crisp, to be honest. I don't know why, because like with New York City, right, as a city overall, it's kind of like rough around the edges in a sense and kind of ugly. And I like my New York strips ugly. I like my Wagyu probably like medium in a sense, or like medium well, maybe in a sense. And then like, the tomahawks, they are a little bit beefier, and I actually call them like dinosaur bones, right? When they come out, they're like, huge. I think I would like them a little bit more on the softer side because they are kind of hard to get through in a sense, but it just depends for different ones and how you would like them. So if anyone hasn't had steak like that, and if it's your first time walking into like a great paying job, or if you have a little bit money to spend, but you haven't been a steak eater, like just think about all these things. And like I said, when you go to a restaurant, like if it's a really good restaurant, the waiter will give you the rundown. And they'll even bring out the steak for you, like all the different meat selections and stuff.
Man. There's I can't remember the name of the steakhouse, but I'm originally from New Orleans, and there was a steakhouse down there where like the mob used to hang out back in the day, like in the 60s and stuff. And they had booths, like it was all booths. They may have had like some tables out, but the booth had like a curtain. And it was like little rooms basically. And so it was just like you're talking about, like just that kind of, it was just like, you're meant to have like a conversation that you want anybody else to hear, So like close the curtain. The waiter kind of pokes their head in like, hey, can I get you anything? Or knocks before they open the curtain, But that was just such a cool thing. I went there one time. I can't remember the name of the place. But anyway, 2 more questions. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Hawaii. I mean, so Hawaii and London for different reasons. I don't travel that much, to be honest. When I went to London last year was my first time out of the country. And believe it or not, the person that I stayed with in London was someone that reached out to me, like to network, and of course we had a lot in common. Yeah, so I stayed with him and his brother. And he gave me like the true kind of London experience. Of course, I went to some tourist spots, right, to see Big Ben,
chips and all that stuff.
London is super diverse. For anyone that's listening to this, do not be like with Western media, unfortunately, like in movies and television shows, it is come from like a white lens, right? Like, let's be honest, like even with Paris. But it's like a melting pot, like probably even more diverse than New York, believe it or not. So I love London and I also love the music that came out of London, right? And that culture. And the music that came out of the UK, places like Bristol or Wales or Scotland and all in Manchester, right? Like all these other different bands that came out of there. So it was pretty cool I also went to Oxford as well. We did a road trip to
Oh, nice,
Oxford,
dude.
and
Yeah.
this guy that I was with, this guy that I was staying with, his brother, right, was doing like 140 on the highway.
Oh,
So it was
Jesus.
like a 2 hour trip, and we got there like 40 minutes.
Now,
Because
140 miles an hour or 140 kilometers an hour?
probably both.
Whatever
I
it
don't
was.
know, man.
Just
It was insane. Yeah. So
It was so fast. It was doing
Hawaii,
both. Uh-huh.
Hawaii, if you've never been to that place, it is
never
unreal. The
been.
pictures do not do it. Or you never been?
Yeah, never
Yo,
been, dude.
like stuff that you would see like in like a movie or like a video game. That's what Hawaii looks like. It just doesn't look real. And it's almost like a video game as well, because they have like all these different hiking trails. And all these hiking trails have like all these beautiful vistas and things like that. And not only that, it's like levels, right? Like video games. You have some that are fairly easy, and then you have some that are too damn hard for its own good. But once you get to the top, or once you get to a certain part, right?
It's worth it.
It like pays off, because you get to see like this cool stuff and interact with nature itself. So yeah, Hawaii and London are tied.
All right. I have never been to London. I've stayed on a layover in London, but I've never been to Hawaii. All right. What is your favorite design tool that's not Figma? This is the last question, by the way. Favorite design tool that's not Figma?
I would say Framer. Framer.
Okay.
I think Framer has just come a long way. Matter of fact, does Principle count? I'm going to say Principle, because it's like really well designed. I know it's a prototyping tool, but it can easily be integrated with Figma and Sketch. And the way that it works is almost works like Pro Tools or something, or like, Logic Pro or some like studio tool that you use, or even like video editing or like editing software that you're probably about to use for this call. It works like that, and it just makes sense, if that makes sense. Like, you'll see something and it looks complex, right? And you're kind of scared to do it. But the way that it flows, it just makes sense for like my brain at least. And I'm pretty sure other people feel that way. Yeah, Principle is really great. But Framer is a second up too, with how far they've come as an organization. And I think it's brilliant how they just got into like website building.
Too.
And
smart pivot from,
Yeah.
I think,
unlike InVision,
sure.
am I right? Hey,
I know,
I know. Out there.
Yep.
Hey, cut that out, by the way. Don't. So I'm just gonna say here, unlike some other design tools that we know, right?
Rest in peace. All right, Kerry, that's it, man. That's all we got. So thanks again for coming on, sharing your insights. This has been fantastic. Before we get out of here, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Give yourself a shout. Where can people find you, follow you on LinkedIn, or follow you online and all that stuff?
LinkedIn. My name is just Kerry McPhearson. I think Jerry I'm pretty sure I have it in the D box and all that.
We'll put it in the notes.
Like I said, feel free to just send me a short. No need for formalities, a long message. Just say, hey, I heard you on Jeremy's podcast, and then we can kind of conversate. After that. Also Instagram. Name is Kaleidoscope Beams. I will also send that link to Jeremy's profile. I have like a bunch of different pictures, but the money shot is in the stories, because I actually go to a lot of courtside basketball games and go to different concerts and different events. That's pretty. Also post like different like graphic design images and different stuff like that too. And I post like a lot of funny stuff as well, and just like a lot of like thought-provoking tweets in my stories. That's how I get like a lot of my creativity in those IG stories. So that's pretty much it.
That's it. All right, Kerry. Well, thanks again, man. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been fantastic.
Peace.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for Kerry and me for today. I hope we helped to shed a little bit of light on hiring managers and how they're not a monolith, and it's almost impossible to tell what any one hiring manager wants without doing your research. So for the love of God, go out there and get to know your people. Do some research, figure out what you need to do, what you need to say, what you need to show for that role that you want. That's the most important thing. But have you followed any of this advice in the past? Has it gotten you the job? Or maybe you followed in the past, you realized this wasn't the job for you. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then for the love of God, tell them about it. That would be fantastic. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Beyond UX Design, Master Your Craft Beyond Pixels and Prototypes, unlock the secrets of UX success, and learn all the things I didn't teach you in school. Use the promo code LISTENER for 10% off. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book to pick up your copy today. Help keep the show independent and ad-free. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/support to find out how. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, and many others, and help keep the show independent and ad-free. And you'll get rough transcripts and exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, and even episodes before they're released. And you can get instant access to those video archives for as little as $5 a month. And if you're looking for a UX course that's as unique as you are, do yourself a favor, check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/mento and use the promo code BeyondUX200 for $200 off the course. So join Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. Remember to sign up for the newsletter, check out all the past episodes along with all the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. Here we go. Hold on. Let's see. Watch. Can you hear this? Do you hear that? Or is that just me? I don't know. No,
Yeah,
that's just for me.
It's just you. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.